In Chapter 3, we're going to talk about how to gather data for our ConceptStation file. The first thing we're going to look at is geocoordination services. So we're going to go ahead and open up ConceptStation, and we're going to create a new file. And we're going to tell it where we want to create this file. And we've got a folder out there for Bighorn for geocoordination services, and I'm just going to name this file Bighorn underscore geo serve for geocoordination services. And then for the coordinate system, I'm going to use that same one we used before, the NAD83 2011 for US foot, and create a shape around the area that I want to create my file in. So we'll go ahead and create that, and then it's going to pop up and say, how do you want to import it? We're going to use the geocoordination services. It's going to go out there and say we have terrain and possibly some static imagery to bring in. So we'll hit next on that. And it's going to go out there and look for terrain information and also look for any imagery that it can find out there on the internet. I believe it uses the USGS website. And once it finds it out there, it's going to go ahead and try to bring that in, which it does. It shows that it's got some medium and some low and possibly some high. We've only got a medium static imagery, but we've got a medium terrain, and that file's fairly large. So we know it's probably a pretty decent terrain. Then it's going to bring them in as a scalable mesh. It's going to generate those. And then it's going to import the imagery that it finds out there and also add it as a scalable mesh to our terrain that we brought in. You have to have a terrain in order to bring in your imagery. And it drapes it on there. And then you can take a look at where it got it from, little information about each one of those, where it pulled that data from. Okay. So once we click done, we should go out there and you can see that the image has been draped over the top of that 10 file or the terrain file. If I take a look at any of the locations around here, I can kind of zoom around. You can kind of see that it does have some relief. So it is actually a 3D file, and it has draped it over that terrain. All bridges look like that, where they're a little bit sagged right in there, but that's the way it's going to be. If you don't have that data from USGS, if you can't get it from geocoordination services, you can go out there and get it from USGS directly. And we'll show you how to do that here. Basically, we're creating another new file, and we're going to put that in a folder out on the network. Okay, we've got a Bighorn import folder. So we're going to use that one. Select that folder. We're going to do our name here. We're going to call it Bighorn underscore import. And then our coordinate system, we're going to make it the same as what we've been doing so far. We're going to do the NAD83 US foot one for central zone. And we have to then draw a shape out of the area that we're looking for. And we'll create it. And that's going to go out and create our file. And once it's created, we can skip this portion of it. So we're not going to do geocoordination services. We're actually going to take a look at the location of this one. So over on the left, we've got the measuring tools, and there's a location tool that everywhere we left click out there on our drawing or our map, we're going to get coordinates. If you take a look at those coordinates, we're going to make sure that the information that we download is in that same coordinates. Okay, so we're going to go out to the internet now, and we've got the Earth Explorer, which is a USGS site. So we're going to go out to earthexplorer.usgs.gov. And in here you have to be logged in. You have to have a login to do this. So you would have to create a login to be able to do this. It's free. Um, so that would be your first step, is creating that. The next thing then would be to go out and try to locate where your project is. So in here I just typed in Bighorn in Jefferson City, Missouri, did a show, and it will show me where it thinks that is. I can left click on it and it'll drop a pin out there at that location. I can zoom into that pin and I can see that, yep, it has landed in Bighorn area. Okay, so I can kind of get my window centered how I want it. However my window is out there, I can hit this Use Map button and it will draw a shape out there where I can gain information. So wherever you want to gather your information, just zoom into there and do the Use Map. Then I can go look at the data sets that are available in that area. One of the things here is the GeoTIFF. I want to take a look at those. And down here under digital elevation, I want to take a look at the LiDAR that's available. Once you do that, you can go into the results and take a look at what it found in that area. So the first thing we're looking at is the GeoTIFFs, and there's a little button here that allows you to see a area or a map that shows where that image is located. So each one of these buttons that I'm pushing, it's displaying where that is in the map. So I can see I've got one here that kind of covers the whole area that I'm looking for. So I'll be able to download that, and I can download that. It tells me the file size, and it's going to download it as a zip file, and I can go ahead and save that, and I'll just save it in my downloads there. Takes a little time to bring those down, 20 minutes or so. They're a pretty good size file. Okay, but once it's downloaded, then it goes ahead and brings that zip file in. And if you want to take a look at that, you can extract that out into my current folder that I'm in, and you'll see that it brings over a text file and a TIFF image, and those two work together to georeference it. So if I look at the text file and look at the metadata, you can come down here and see all kinds of information about that TIFF file that I downloaded. Okay, so minimize that out and close out the download portion of it. And the next thing I want to do now is to change this to LiDAR, because I want to take a look at what LiDAR is available in this area. Most of the state of Missouri has some LiDAR, not all of it, but most of it does. And it's got the same information. It's got the same little button here that when you click on it, it will display where that LiDAR data is located. So you can see on this one LiDAR typically doesn't cover the whole entire area that I'm looking for. So I may have to download several, but I'm going to download one here, and I'm going to download the last file, and it comes across as a zip file. And I can save that down. This one's a lot quicker to download. They're smaller files, but they cover a smaller area as well. So I can take a look at that zip file. I can extract that as well. And in here I have a last file and an XML that goes along with that last file. If I take a look at the XML that comes across with it, I can see it does the same sort of thing. It's got a bunch of information in there. One of the main things, though, is this state plane, Missouri Central, 2402 feet. That is the coordinate system that one is currently in. So I'll go back into ConceptStation now, and I'm going to open up Power Geopack. And I'm going to create a file here. And I'm going to make it a 3D file. And I'm going to name it Bighorn Import.dgn. And I'm going to go into that file. And inside of this file, I want to set the coordinate system to match the coordinate system of the ConceptStation file. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to take a look at ConceptStation, and I can see again the information on this file. So we'll take a look at it. We can see that we are using that Central Zone Missouri state plane. So we're going to go into MicroStation then and look at the coordinate system, and I can see that I've got that same coordinate system here. So we're going to set it up to be the same. Okay, then I can go up into the point clouds and I can attach a LAS file. Right now it's looking for pod files, so I'm going to come down here and change it to LAS, and I'm going to go to where I downloaded that information, and I'm going to find that LAS file that I just downloaded, and I'm going to bring that in. Okay, so we're going to do an attach. We're going to make sure that it says survey feet. That's very important here to make sure that you have to change that. It's not automatic, so you have to make sure you change that. And we're going to let it reproject. So any information that I bring across, the LAS file is going to reproject to my coordinate system. And we're going to say, well, what coordinate system is it currently in? So we can go out and search for the one that I saw in the XML file. So we can go out here and search for that exact coordinate system. So we'll find it, it'll go out and search for it, and it'll locate it. All the ones that match that, we'll locate it in the list and select it. You can add it to the favorites, and then that will add it to our favorites inside of MicroStation. Then I can select it, and that is the source, and then the destination is whatever my MicroStation file is currently. And we're going to change it to a pod file, so it's automatically going to convert that to a pod file for us. And once I do that, I can fit the view, and it's going to go out there and show me where that location is. So there's the LiDAR data brought in from a LAS file, converted to a pod file, and in the right coordinate system. Okay. I can bring in that second LAS file in the same manner, do exactly the same thing as I did before. US survey feet, we're definitely going to make sure that it says survey feet there. But now all this information is already in there for us, so it's a little bit faster. We can say OK to bring that in and change it to a pod file. And we'll bring it in, and now we've got two pod files out there that are covering some of our area. Okay, I can get rid of the geo coordinates in here. And then under tasks, I can create a terrain model from these point clouds, and that's the fourth tool in the terrain model tools. And it's going to take a look at what point clouds you have turned on currently. Okay, and it's going to pull up this dialog, which allows me to set a max triangle length. Typically this is a good idea so it doesn't go outside the boundaries, but I'll set a max triangle length, and I'll also set a feature definition so I can get the right display that I want. Let's say that I want existing triangles. So I can come and do that. You could filter this down also if you wanted to try to get the pod file to be a little bit smaller, the terrain file to be smaller. In this case, we'll just leave the filter at none. And once we hit import, we'll go ahead and have it take a look at all the pod files that are in here and create one big terrain model for us. If I go in here and turn the display off on those pod files, I can close that down, and then all you'll see is the terrain model itself. So that works really nice. We can go into the civil model, take a look at the terrain models that are in here from the Project Explorer. And then we can export this out to a GeoPack 10. And we can put it in our Bighorn folder. And Point Cloud 10 is fine for this one. And what it'll do is it'll export out that terrain model to a GeoPack 10. Okay, as you can see, it did the export on that. Then we can go out and close out MicroStation. We can go right back into ConceptStation now. And in our backstage here, we can go to the import. And there's raster and terrain is what it's set on, so we can add the data. We can go into our folder that contains that new GeoPack 10 file that we have, which we put it in our data folder. And we'll go out there and it says it has no coordinate system. It's going to use the one that is created in ConceptStation, and that's the one we want, so we'll just go ahead and import it. And it's creating the scalable meshes just like as if we downloaded with GeoCoordination services. It's doing the same exact thing. It's turning that 10 file into a file that ConceptStation knows. Okay, so it brought in the point cloud. And as you can see, right now there's no image. We haven't brought the image in yet, so that's the next thing we need to do. The terrain model's in there, so we're going to go back to the backstage and import. It's a raster that we're going to bring in. So we add our data just like we did. And this one is in the downloads folder. That's where we downloaded that TIFF image before. So we can also just import that in and bring it in. And it's going to apply it over the top of that 10 file. Now, if they weren't in the same coordinate system, you would get an error here that they don't overlap, but in this case they do. So we get an import successful, and we get something that looks like this. So we move that around and we start to rotate this around a little bit. You'll notice a few differences in this one compared to the other one. The trees actually have a little bit of an elevation to them. There might be some spikes here and there in this, but you can actually see a little bit more relief doing it this way. There's other data that we can import. So if we go back to our backstage, we can go back to the import. Rasters and terrains, that's what we've been importing. There's other content that can be imported. So when you go to content and you go to add data, what it's looking for is, if I go change the filter down here, it's looking for other DGN-DB ConceptStation files to bring in. The other tab, you can do the same thing. What it looks for all these different things here, DGNs, shape files, ALG files. But you can bring in a shape file from ARC if you wanted to. But you can bring in all those different kinds of things. If you go out to Midmo GIS, you can actually pull in some shapefile information. So one thing you can pull in is city limits. And I didn't have to be logged in here or anything like that. I can go take a look at what it's going to try to bring down, and you can see here the coordinate system is the same coordinate system we had for our TIFF image. Okay, so we can actually click on this city limits file. It's going to download. It is a zip file as well. We'll put that in our Bighorn download folder, and it's going to save that down. And then we can just extract that again. just like we did the other files. And you'll see now there's city limit files out there. There's a shape file for city limits. So we close that down, and then we go back to the other tab and we add data, and we go to our Bighorn import folder, downloads. You can see now we have a shape file. And if we open that up, you can see the different classes that we have available for us here. So these are part of the classes that were built into that shapefile that we downloaded. And if all we want to see is maybe the name, we could see the name of streets or anything like that that we want to bring down. Now we can go and import that. Import was successful, so it goes right over the top of it, and it will now have a shapefile. If you take a look at the top view of this thing, you'll see that the city limits were brought out for the city. Okay, so you can bring in shapefiles, you can bring in all kinds of different things, DGN files. We're going to show you later on in this class bringing in different DGN files and how they'll look.